point, I actually think there's an element of like Trumpism in the beauty industry as well. Something about that no makeup look screams conservative values to me. I think it's safe to say I'm never highlighting or straightening my hair ever again. I have my like bisexual shag until I die. But I think also with like overtly obvious plastic surgery. I feel like conservatives don't like plastic surgery. So we've seen this trend of everyone getting their filler dissolved, young people getting facelifts because their skin's all saggy from all the filler that they got. Also, Botox is manufactured in Ireland, so there's going to be like a tariff on Botox. I don't know. There's something here. I gotta cook with this. But I think the aesthetics of the face have been changing, and I think they were predictive of a Trump win. Women amending their appearances to be less like overtly obviously worked on and more appealing to the male gaze. Utah curls trending, all these like latte hair colors, like very subtle sombre highlights. When I was in my youth, it was like dip dye and like neon pink hair, like all of the Tumblr hair colors were trendy. Now blue hair is associated with being like a radical feminist. People are saying that like winged eyeliner, which is historically worn by like goth girls, they're saying it's the equivalent of skinny jeans and that it's like embarrassing and passe. People are getting their tattoos lasered off. Oh my God, I didn't even think about that one. There's something here. I gotta cook with this. There's something here, but I will report back on what I think about.
It's interesting because I think it happens on the white side of TikTok. No, honestly, because none of those things even affect even the women on the ground. And when I'm talking about women on the ground, I'm talking about Black women, you know. And I think sometimes when they have these conversations, as great as they are, is amazing and need to be talked about, obviously, because it starts from there. Eventually, everything else becomes like a sinkhole for other races eventually. So what happens? Now we start adopting to those norms, and Black women thinking for some reason that they can associate themselves with whiteness end up getting. Anyways, for me, I've always seen the Trump. When I'm thinking about Trump, I think about like there's a chocolate that we'll call Chomp in South Africa. It's just like this nice chocolate. But anyways, Trump's administration came along with other things that are not really talked about. They're not really talked about. They're subtle things, right? And as subtle as they are, they come in with a change, especially in the financial sector. We've seen it as well. And how girls, even with the ad that was done recently, they were talking about my jeans are blue. And that time, that girl is a brunette. She said it. She's a natural brunette. And she's like, jeans. And I think it will, somebody said something about it affecting white women more than it would affect other people. But again, that's where it starts. Other people are saying, oh, well, it's more than racism. But they don't see it. And they're going to see it white women. I'm going to attach it as well. I think I've already attached this video, but I'm going to attach it. But before I attach it, I'm going to attach her video, which is an extension of this video, so that you guys can watch it. Then I'm going to add that final piece of that lady, which goes extensively into what, I hope it connects the dots on what they're talking about, because we saw that the financial industry is going bankrupt and they needed to boost something. Blue eyes, blonde hair, white pale skin, some jeans, and something that attracts white men. And who are in charge of the economy? Obviously white men.
The recent rise in the natural look in plastic surgery is absolutely predictive of a Trump win, and I want to talk about why. I think a lot of people, when they think about MAGA, they think about Mar-a-Lago face. Yes, this is actually a thing. There have been articles written about it, and look at people like Matt Gaetz and Laura Loomer. But that's not what I'm talking about, because that's not what most people want to look like, because that's not the beauty standard. In order to understand what I mean when I say the return to the natural look is indicative of the rise of conservatism and fascism in the United States, all we need to do is look at Weimar Republic Germany. Eugenics was really popular at this point in time. And as a Jewish person, I'm here to tell you the idealization of Aryan beauty standards is really fucking dangerous. Weimar Republic Germany was the time right before the rise of Nazism. Post-World War I, pre-World War II. Germany's economy wasn't really doing well. Weimar Republic was actually a pretty forward-thinking time period. But when economies aren't doing well, what rises in popularity? Fascism.
Additionally, there was a flu pandemic in 1918, so that's the rise of eugenics to show off a healthy body. We recently had a mass disabling event and a pandemic of our own. Let's think about COVID for a second. A lot of celebrities like Jennifer Lawrence, Hailey Bieber, and Sophia Richie emerged post-COVID with this very, very subdued, natural beauty look. All of them had work done, heavy amounts of work done, by the way. The difference between Mar-a-Lago face and this type of plastic surgery is that it's indetectable. But make no mistake, they all had serious work done. And recently we've seen a new crop of celebrities emerge, all having had facelifts after getting all their filler dissolved. The overfilled lip look is completely out with most celebrities. Why is that, you say? Because the natural look that I'm speaking of is rooted in white supremacy. When fascism is on the rise, so is white supremacist beauty ideals. I mean, take a look at all of these faces. They literally look like Nazi propaganda circa 1935. Believe me, as a Jewish person, I can see the signs. It's written on the walls. Beauty, fashion, politics, they're all interconnected because beauty and fashion are the outward expression of an internalized value system. And if people in politics want a certain value system, i.e. fascism, to be popular, they're going to push a certain beauty standard down your throat so that you fall the fucking line. And it's going to be a beauty standard that is expensive and unattainable for most of us. Aryanism was an ideal. Eugenics is the idealism of the human body and the human form. Fascism and white supremacy rely on an in-group, i.e. white people, asserting their power over the out-group, i.e. minorities. I'm telling you guys, a narrowing beauty standard is absolutely indicative of a rise in conservatism, because lest we not forget, there was a time in history where Italians weren't even thought of as white. Irish people too. It's all a means of asserting control and dominance over another group of people. I'm sure some people are going to say this is a conspiracy theory, but I'm telling you, history repeats itself. And 92% of black women and 90% of Jewish women voted for Kamala. So don't say we didn't try to warn y'all.
So obviously this is rage bait, but here's what nobody's really talking about. This campaign is poking at women's greatest and most tender insecurity under the patriarchy, which is desirability in the beauty standard. It affects not only non-white women, even though this is clearly white supremacist, Aryan race propaganda, but it also adversely affects the majority of white women who do not naturally have blonde hair and blue eyes. Because yes, even the women who can achieve this look have to do it through artificial means in one way or another. The vast majority of white women are not naturally blonde. It's a very, very, very small percentage who go on to be naturally blonde in adulthood. Sydney Sweeney herself is not even a natural blonde. And of course, lots of white women are also insecure about having brown eyes. So that's a whole generation of young white women who are being further propagandized to purchase blonde hair dye and contacts for the rest of all time. Another thing about the Sydney Sweeney beauty standard that is very important to note is that big boobs are a hallmark of what conservative men are attracted to. At the end of the early 2000s and through the 2010s, we were becoming a more progressive society, and so we also naturally progressed to be a more ass-centric society. Women of color are more likely to have a naturally fat ass. These things intersect. Imagine that. This campaign using Sydney Sweeney in this way is pushing women to pander to conservative men and their fantasies. And before I go any further, I also think it's important to note, and I can second this based on my own personal life experience, that a lot of conservative men just want to show the world that this is their type. But like the Madonna whore complex, they're actually likely to also be interested in women of color, black women, trans women, and then just hold a woman like Sydney Sweeney up on their arm to show to the world that they are adhering to the white supremacist, patriarchal, capitalistic beauty standards. Because men, and especially conservative men, are male-centered too. And unfortunately, a lot of times the woman on their arm is a lot more about keeping up appearances than it is about what they genuinely desire. But anyway, the messaging for women is that you need to be desirable. This is what desirability looks like. You want to be desirable for men. You know what type of man is into this? Conservative men. That leads women to be conservative women. The birth rate has crashed and is burning. They want women back in the houses, back in the kitchens, popping out babies like there's no tomorrow. And you know what guy is most likely to believe in that specific American vision as well? The same type of guy who wants to have this type of woman on his arm in public. It is a trap. Classic propaganda tactic. It's a whole lot of subliminal messaging packed up in this campaign that will affect the brains of women who are either too young and naive to understand this, or just not the sharpest tool in the shed. Sure, it'll hurt the self-esteem of women of color, but this is actually most dangerous for white women, because again, most white women do not naturally look like this. Even Sydney Sweeney does not naturally look like this. She has to buy a bottle of blonde hair dye every single month. It keeps women on a perpetual hamster wheel of chasing desirability for no one other than men. And who does it serve? The elite's pockets. It's a capitalistic scheme. That's what I mean when I say that capitalism and patriarchy are cults. They tell you how to live your life as though this is the only right way. And oftentimes it's done by a lot of brainwashing and subliminal messaging, and it's in fucking everything. To the untrained eye, the unintelligent eye, this looks like a normal ass campaign where they're just saying Sydney Sweeney is hot. But if you think deeper, if you have critical thinking skills, this is Nazi propaganda. The only way to actually win the capitalism patriarchy game as a woman is to stop finding and putting your value in how well you meet their white supremacist beauty standards and in how horny you make men. Because one day, Sydney Sweeney's gonna be be a little too old for their liking and they're just going to dump her for the next young blonde, blue-eyed bombshell. And the cycle will continue unless we choose to get smarter and stop absorbing the message.